Hey, Mama. Hi, Katie.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. That's my mom joining down here.
Oh, that's good.
No, in a comfortable position. I will get everybody muted here. I almost forgot that. Let's see. There we go. All right. And as you're settling in here, if there's any movement, any little fidgeting that you need, don't hesitate to take it. Start to feel the parts of your body that are in contact with your mat, with the ground beneath you. Back of your head, shoulder blades, your tailbone, backs of the legs. Maybe your palms or the backs of the hands if your palms are flipped up. And just let these areas become a little heavier as you start to settle and feel a little more grounded. In that process of bringing your awareness to all those parts of the body, become also aware of the support of the earth below, and then also notice the air that's surrounding you and touching your skin. Notice if it feels cool or warm. And feel that lightness of the air. That dual sensation of being grounded and also feeling that lightness. And start to notice both sides of your breath. The inhales filling up the space, chest lifting, becoming light, and then that sinking in, a little more heaviness on your exhales as you let all your air out. And let your breath continue to develop here. Let yourself fully arrive to your practice. And when we make this arrival to our mat, and the first step is getting our physical selves here. And then start to notice if your thoughts are somewhere earlier today, or maybe on something that you need to do later. And try to guide the thoughts to the here and now. In those moments throughout the practice, when the thoughts drift, just using that gentle coaxing back to the present, using the breath, focusing on the breath, which always keeps us in the here and now. And along with our thoughts, there's also our emotional body, variables that we might be bringing onto the mat. So noticing how you can bring all of those facets of yourself here. Anything waiting for you later on, anything from the past that needs to be examined, all of those things will still be there. Just try to land right here as best as you can. Just take a few nice deep breaths more. And then with a breath in, as you're ready to start to move, just begin to find motion in your fingers, your toes. Continue that motion throughout your exhale. Maybe take another round of breath just with small, gentle movement. And when you're ready to expand it out with another inhalation, we'll take a nice long body stretch. Arms can reach up overhead. Toes might point. And then stay there for a full round. Just notice your whole torso filling up with breath and releasing on your exhale. You can release into knees hugging into your chest and find a little rocking motion side to side. You might trace some little circles with your knees. And however you would like to travel your way there, we will come next to a seated position. So you might roll onto your side and spend a little time there, or you might just rock yourself on up. Either way. And for this next pose, I'm going to take my folded blanket and give a little lift underneath the hips. And soles of the feet will come together. We're making a butterfly shape here in the legs. And the heels are about a foot or so from the body. And notice if the spine is wanting to round back. If so, you might lift the hips up a little bit higher with, if you're not sitting on something, or sit on something a little thicker. And then just find a couple of breaths here with the chest nice and lifted, shoulders relaxed. You can turn your palms up and just start that release, that softening as we're upright here. Notice if your legs are tense, you can also stick pillows underneath your shins for support there. These props just help support our body. And when you're ready, we'll take a nice deep breath in. On the exhale, start to walk the hands forward, rounding the spine forward into a fold. This is another spot where we might grab for a prop, a pillow, or some place to rest. Either your chest or your elbows can come down. If you're not too deep into that fold, elbows can prop onto a pillow or a block, and chin can rest in the hands. And then find your breath here. Notice where you can get a little bit softer. Noticing where there might be tension. And the release doesn't often happen all at once. It can take some time. So just give yourself some time to settle in. So as we're mostly settled into this posture and using our breath to deepen, or maybe just stay right where you are, I wanted to share this final mantra for our practice today from Thich Nhat Hanh. This is the 6th passage. I think most of you have been here for at least a couple of these. So this is our last one. If you missed any and you're interested, I can always send you a little screenshot, because they're all very, very thoughtful, very beautiful. And I love this last one. The 6th mantra is, you are partly right. You are partly right. When someone congratulates you or criticizes you, you can use this mantra. I have weakness in me, and I also have strengths. If you congratulate me, I shouldn't get lost and ignore that there are negative things in me. When we see the beautiful things in the other person, we tend to ignore the things that are not so beautiful. We are human, so we have both positive and negative things in us. So when your beloved one congratulates you and tells you you are the very image of perfection, you say, you are partly right. You know that I have the other things in me also. In this way, you can retain your humility. You are not a victim of illusion, because you know that you're not perfect. When another person criticizes you, you can also say, you are partly right. So the way that we can take this to our practice today, our biggest critic is always within ourselves. Always, always. Notice when you are in these shapes tonight, the things that come up, not only the sensations, but the dialogue, what the shapes look like, maybe feelings of imperfection, all of these thoughts that come up, and acknowledging with that humility that we are partly right. Our practice is not perfect. It does not have to be perfect. But also coming at it from quieting that saboteur, that critic, and knowing that the other side of that is also true, that we are good enough in this practice, even in our imperfections. Letting that guide us. So let's take a couple breaths more. We've been here for a bit, so notice where you've gone. Notice if you have softened, if you've deepened into the posture, and then with a big breath in, stay for your breath out. And at the bottom of that exhale, start to press the floor and take your spine upright. Just noticing that release of your fold. And then when you're ready, gather those knees up toward each other. Let your legs either stretch out in front of you, take those windshield wipes side to side. And we're going to continue from seated for the next posture here. I'm going to take my blanket over to the right side of my body over here. And we're setting up for deer pose, if you're familiar. If you're not, take your right shin kind of parallel-ish out in front of you, kind of like a pigeon or swan with the right leg. And then this left leg tucks behind. So you're making a letter Z with your legs. And I know I just said parallel with that shin, but if it's not comfortable, let that heel come in. It can be a more acute angle here in this right leg. So right away, my hips are pretty tight. I'm feeling that rotation. Just sit with it upright, just like we did in our last posture. Just take a couple beats here. And as with anything, when we move things forward, if you go somewhere that isn't working in your body, if it's causing any pain, any tingling, any loss of sensation, just come back a step, or release the pose. We never want any pain. So with that said, you can always just stay as you are right here, or take a nice deep breath in. And on the exhale, we'll take both hands over to the right side of your legs, outside of the thigh. And you might stay here in this twist lifted, or if it's appropriate, you can come on down to your elbows. So this twist gets pretty deep in the torso. Once again, notice if it's working for you. If not, dial it back. I also notice when I take this into a twist, it releases my hips somewhat. It takes it more into the torso and it's less of a hip opening. So for that reason, if you need some more in your hips, you can come back to that starting position. If you did come down to elbows, if you're here with me, try to soften your shoulders a bit, loosen your hands, soften your brow, soften your jaw. Going back to our mantra tonight of you are partly right. Taking it a little bit beyond the mat, but staying within ourselves. How many times do we get really hung up or stuck on an idea and we can't entertain that possibility that there might be another way of thinking? And it's all in the softening, just like we try to soften the body, softening the mind sometimes, softening our opinions, the things that we hang on to. And once we can access that and take that introspective view within ourselves, we can start to have a little bit more compassion for others when we don't see eye to eye. But it's a practice, right? It doesn't come right away, just like these yoga poses. Few breaths more. Breath in where you are. And as you breathe out, we'll let it go. Coming up. And once again, enjoying that lift, being upright. I'm going to switch my blanket over here and then carefully let your legs go. Give them a little stretch, give them a little pedal here. Any release that you need is a good place to go. And then we'll set up side two whenever you are ready to go there. So left shin in front this time, right leg tucks behind you. And by the way, you can also adjust this right leg. It might be pretty far forward, or you might swing it back open a bit more if you have that space. But just see what's going on. Don't strain. You want to feel something, but not be forceful about it. And we'll just start with this couple of breaths here. Maybe you start that process of releasing through the muscles of your legs. And take a breath in, a little more length through the spine. And exhale, twist over to your left if you're twisting. Seeing how this feels. Adding in that twist. And taking it down to your elbows eventually. Doesn't have to be right away. Each time there's a little adjustment or a big adjustment, oftentimes we have to scan back through the body and re-release. Things tend to tense up when we make the changes. And as we hold, is tension releasing? Is sensation lessening? Or is it building a bit? If things build to a point that you need to back off, then please take that, please honor that. If you need to go in deeper to re-access a little bit more feeling, then you can go there. Last breaths here. Inhale again. And as you exhale, release your fold. Untwisting, sitting up tall. And taking those legs around. Finding the movement that you need. And we're coming next to all fours to hands and knees. So if it sounds good to shift positions, we've been seated for a while. So come up here and continue to take that movement. It's a good place to stretch your legs. Maybe there's a downward facing dog looking to bust out. Also room for some cat and cow poses. Mobilizing that spine as well as the legs. And so I've placed my blanket underneath the knees and shins just for that extra padding and support. Another place you might potentially want to prop out in front of you, maybe a pillow. I've got a bolster here. Block even might come in handy. Just something to lift the floor a bit. So we're coming into our Anahatasana, melting heart pose, or Anahata is our heart. And for this posture, I think most of you guys know the drill, but we're keeping the hips right above the knees. So checking that alignment, making sure we're stacked, not dropping back like a child's pose or coming forward like a modified plank. But keeping that bolted in place here, hands start to walk out. And once you get out here, normally this is when I say drop your head, but try to drop your elbows here first Let your heart space, your chest get really nice and heavy. This is where your pillow, your bolster might come in handy underneath the forehead. So you can have that prop there, or maybe take your forehead all the way down to the mat if that's within your body tonight. So this is a nice opening of the shoulders. It's also an intense opening of the shoulders. If you need a little bit less, you might bend one elbow or both elbows at a time. If you bend one elbow, I'll demonstrate on this side. My right elbow bends, and then I can rest my forehead on top of the right palm. If you're needing a little bit more without moving the hips, be a stickler about that little detail here. The fingertips might creep a little bit further forward. Then you can feel that shoulder joint just start to open and extend all that wonderful connective tissue in that complex joint. So heart is sinking down, tailbone is sticking up. Breath is nice and strong. If your feet are tense or floating above the mat or blanket, try to ground them without being too tense or rigid about it, just getting them resting on something, not floating. Really deepen in the breath, especially if you've got a lot of sensation coming. Make sure you've switched sides if you're taking one arm at a time. Just a few more breaths more, you can do it. And then as you prepare to come on out, let your elbows bend, get those shoulders underneath you, and carefully, slowly release up to your tabletop. Maybe come back into a cat pose to really round through the spine. That is a nice back bend in addition to opening our shoulders. Anytime we bend the back, we open the heart, and vice versa. So let it go, let it go, let it go. And continuing that rounding of the spine, rolling right into our next posture. The hips will come back to a child's pose, and your arms might just rest right by your sides to let the shoulders drop forward. The forehead can be to the mat, but you can also come to one ear, and also a good place to maybe take a pillow, take something under that ear. I'm still up on my blanket here. If you've got something under your legs and you'd like to remove it, please feel free. Yin is a really still practice, but we don't want to feel like we can't ever move. Making those adjustments to make the pose work. It's different than fidgeting that isn't as purposeful. If you've got your ear down to the mat, we can switch sides here. Few more rounds of breath in this child's pose. Feeling the safety of this pose, feeling the security, the groundedness. Take another big breath. Maybe you sigh it out deeply. And then we'll start to lift it up. And you're welcome to either just rest right here, sitting on your shins, or maybe move up to hands and knees. If that got into your legs, let them stretch. And take a couple more breaths. Take as long as you need. And we'll go ahead and sit on the shins, sit on the heels here for this next posture. So there are going to be several levels here, or a few, I should say. Please do not feel that you need to strain into any of these options, okay? You know, I'm probably making this sound scarier than it is, but so our first level, we're going to do a supported, a gentle camel pose. So those that know camel in a more active practice, it's not a very gentle back bend. So just internalize that word gentle, and we'll try to embody it wherever we end up in this pose. So where we can work here, taking the hands to the low back, fingers pointing down, like you're about to stick them in some pockets, maybe imaginary pockets, and just really draw those shoulder blades together and draw the chest, the heart space open and up. So we can rest right here. And by the way, if this position in your legs is not working for your knees, you can also stick a blanket behind your knees or just go to a seated posture. Don't strain those knees. So if you're feeling okay here and you want to entertain going a little bit deeper, we can rise up onto the knees, onto the shins, lifting up here. So another option for the knees if that was straining them, coming on up. Make sure you have that padding underneath. I'm going to tuck my toes underneath just because that's where I like to be. If you like to have your shoelace side of the feet down, then keep them there. And once again, we can just work on lifting here, pressing the hips forward, opening through the chest, bending the back, opening the heart. And so I urge you to stay here for at least the next few breaths, even as I'm talking through this next place that we could possibly go. This will involve a blanket, a pillow, a block, something that you can give yourself a little extra height here. So from our low back, with this prop in place, it could be a block standing up here between your feet. And then gently, we can take this down to that prop. So not all the way down to the heels like we might come in another practice. Sending the hips forward, lifting the heart up, maybe lifting the chin up and opening the throat, but only if that's not uncomfortable in your breath or the back of your neck. So my shoulder blades are still wrapping in whichever version of this you landed in. Particularly if you came here with me in this full version, we're pretty active here, so we're not going to hold it for a super long time. Just take a few breaths more. And in these last couple of breaths, you might even start to dial it back, hitting that rewind button, coming back to your low back with the hands, chest still lifting. Toes might tuck. I'm just going to go ahead and sit right on this pillow. Ooh, that feels good. Take another breath more. And release as you exhale. And let's find a counter pose to that deep back bend. I'm going to press back up to my cat pose, tucking the chin, tucking the tailbone, really exaggerating this. I'm going to stay but not hold the breath. And from here, without any rush to get there, we're going to make our way down onto the back. That was such a good part of any yoga class when we get to lie back down. So take yourself there, take your knees in, give yourself some rocking motion, circles, massage that low back. And so this is the sixth class, the sixth mantra that I've been sharing from How to Love by Thich Nhat Hanh. So that undercurrent of love, spreading more love, growing more love, finding more love for ourselves, all of it all links together. And this practice tonight has been a big heart opening practice, focusing on that anahata. So right until the end here, we're going to continue to open the heart space. So find your blanket, find your pillow, something long that you can line up along the length of your spine. Take it to the tailbone and then lie back down. And we're taking a supported fish pose here. So shoulder blades wrap around your prop and let the arms just be nice and open. Since we're supported in this fish, we don't need the hands tucked way in. So let the arms open wide. Let that be a part of your opening here. And if you want to straighten the legs, if that feels good in your body, then go there. You can keep the knees bent. You can also come back for those butterfly legs. Find your breath here. And as you continue to soften, settle, your legs might want to find a different position. They may not. And then in these last few moments here in this posture, really focus on this heart space as your lungs, your chest, as everything fills up with air. Feel that big expansion. With your exhales, think of sending all that love, compassion emanating from your heart, sending it out to each other, to the world. Just take a couple more of those big, deep breaths. Feeling that rise and fall of the chest. Good, and then we'll allow the feet to become grounded. Carefully start to release your prop over to one side. Let your spine come all the way back down to the mat. Let the knees hug in. Let's take a quick spinal twist here, opening the arms out wide. Breathing in, exhaling, knees drop over to the left. Yeah, when I say quick, I mean quick by yin standards. We'll still stay here for a few nice solid breaths. When you're ready to switch sides, just come up to the middle on an inhale. And knees drop right on the exhale. Releasing as you are ready. Breathing in. Maybe you draw everything up, lifting the shoulders, making a nice little ball. Head tucking into the knees. And exhale, releasing everything down to your Shavasana. Just as we did at the beginning, and use these first few moments to settle and even fidget a little bit. Get all that movement out of the body, letting your body absorb all the postures that you just did as you also let them go. And by letting go of all of these shapes, because they're now behind us, there's nothing we can change, nothing we need to change. Notice if there's any chatter, any judgment coming up about how your practice looked or felt, or anything you're assigning that good or bad, positive or negative. And just try to rest in the knowledge that you are partly right with everything that is coming up, but there's the other half of that. And knowing that we don't need perfection. It's a practice. And even in our imperfections, every moment is just as it's supposed to be. So taking that in, and give yourself that permission to really release and let go. Remain in this space. Remain in this stillness as long as you need it for. When you're ready to come back into that awareness, just let your breath guide you there, gently deepening back in. And finding that gentle, kind movement, stretch, anything at all that you're seeking on your way up to a comfortable seated position. And once you get there, we'll open the arms, opening the heart nice and wide, sweeping the arms up high on a breath in, gathering up all of this good energy that we created, and exhale as you pull it down right into your Anahata space. Bowing the chin into the chest, and with gratitude for getting yourself here tonight, for each other, for sharing this practice, and my gratitude to all of you for allowing me to guide you. With that gratitude and with light and with love, we say together, Namaste. Thank you, ladies.